Today's show is sponsored by Snowflake, the only data warehouse built for the cloud. Today, organizations need the agility that rapid data insights bring to stay a step ahead of the competition. With Snowflake, you can instantly and infinitely scale your data warehouse with the touch of a button, delivering deep insights at any time for all your users. So start your journey today towards data-driven decision-making by going to snowflake.com/cloudcast. That's snowflake.com/cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Good to be back with everybody this week. And as we jump into today's cloud news of the week, a couple of interesting things that were out there. First and foremost, big congratulations to our friends over at A Cloud Guru. All of you should know A Cloud Guru both as a great sponsor of the show at one point in time, but also we've had both Sam and Ryan on the show a couple of times talking about, how they're really changing the shape of the training industry around cloud computing, what they're doing behind the scenes with serverless, running the serverless conference. So just doing really amazing things. Congratulations to them. They just took a $33 million round of funding. It's going to help them build out a bunch of new services, really bring new trainings and new labs to a lot of different environments. So big congratulations to them. Really excited to see those guys continue to grow the business. Great people, and just really, really good products. People really love being able to get training from A Cloud Guru. Second thing on the list was the Dell Technologies Dell EMC World event is going on this week. A couple of cloud-related announcements that came out of that. The first one was that VMware and Azure made an announcement around what VMware has had a service called VMware on AWS for a while. Essentially, hosted VMware on AWS. They're able to interconnect that with some on-prem stuff. So essentially, it was kind of their hybrid cloud story for VMware between an AWS environment and on-prem. They announced a similar type of offering this week with Azure. So similar type of thing, VMware, traditional VMware environment, running on Azure, hosted on Azure. The only difference in this one, it appears to be sort of the business relationship, the business model. The one from AWS is a VMware offered service, and the one from Azure is an Azure offered service. So it's called Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft offers the service, but it is the VMware compatible thing. So, interesting to see VMware expand out VMware native technologies, VM-centric technologies over to Azure as they had done with AWS in the past. The other thing that they announced this week was something they're calling VMware Cloud On. And this is an announcement they made, I think about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, where they basically said they were going to get in the business, especially for on-prem, of bringing the VMware SDDC architecture. So that's basically the hypervisor, NSXT, so software-defined networking, or NSX, as well as vSAN, so the storage component of it. All of those components together as one SDDC architecture on known hardware. And they were going to manage it to various levels for you. So provide you the hardware, provide you service and support of that hardware. Kind of a counterbalance or response to what Amazon is attempting to do with Outposts. So that was announced. It was announced, obviously, first and foremost on Dell hardware. We would expect maybe in the future they may announce that on other vendor hardware as well. So really kind of an on-prem but managed offering, not necessarily managing your applications, but managing your infrastructure and being able to service and support that. So a couple of big announcements coming out of that there, and really looking at how, VMware is playing a bigger role in this. A lot of discussion about how Dell and VMware are working much closer together now than they ever have, as opposed to VMware being sort of independent. So interesting to watch that shift as we've gone along. And, obviously we talk about this all the time. There's a lot that changes in the industry, and, more and more companies are trying to figure out what sort of choices they make. Do they want more integrated solutions? Do they want more freedom and independence? And that balance and that scale is always shifting back and forth to see where customers want to go. Do they want to be on-prem? Do they want to be in the public cloud? Do they want to be building hybrid type solutions or multi-cloud solutions? So definitely a lot of things going on in this space. Congratulations to all those companies for their announcements. And before we get to our show, I want to thank two new sponsors this week, both Snowflake Computing, and DigitalOcean. So excited to have both of them as sponsors for the show.
Today's show is sponsored by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. It's optimized to make managing and scaling apps easy with an intuitive API, multiple storage options, integrated firewalls, load balancers, and more. What I really love about DigitalOcean is their focus on developers. With the DigitalOcean Marketplace, get started in minutes and don't worry about infrastructure. Plus, DigitalOcean's community provides over 2,000 tutorials to help you stay up to date on the latest open source software, languages, and frameworks. Get started on DigitalOcean for free with a free $100 credit at do.co/cloudcast. That's do.co/cloudcast.
And we're back. Aaron, it is good to have you back as we start our kickoff towards show number 400. One of the topics that comes up all the time, especially as we get into more and more of these distributed applications, new applications, and especially the scale of the things that we're hearing from people, millions of users, millions of devices. How do you keep track of those things? And hopefully, if they ever have problems, be able to monitor them, be able to log them, be able to troubleshoot them. So very, very excited today to have Renaud Boutet, who is the VP of Product Management from Datadog. Renaud, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Some of the things prior to you being at Datadog, you were doing quite a few interesting things in terms of business intelligence and running your own company and so forth. So for folks that may not know you or may not have heard from you before, tell us a little bit about your background prior to Datadog and then how you came to be working on the things that you're doing at Datadog.
So mainly I did 3 jobs in my life, if I simplify it. I have an engineering background, and I started as a developer into a company that was working for financial markets. So what the goal was to build a business intelligence solution for market risk, but much faster than everything that was already out there. So we decided very quick to do an in-memory all-app engine. And so this is what I've developed for almost 6 years in that first company, Quartet, where I met one of the most talented developer I met in the past, which became my partner into the company that I started straight after. So I then created Focusmatic. I did social analytics. It was a commercial failure, so we pivoted to log management. And this is so it was in 2014. And we decided to pivot to log management, which was much more promising. And we did that for 2.5 years. And then we got acquired by Datadog, in which I became product manager first, and then now a VP of product.
Renaud, let's clear some things up. So conceptually, we hear some terms thrown around, and I'd like to hear, kind of your differences when people start talking about these. I'll kind of say buckets, if you will, right? So when people say monitoring versus logging versus observability, what do you respond to that, and how do you think that through?
So monitoring, I guess, is the first basic need, right? Is about knowing if something is running as it is supposed to. So is it up or is it down? It's like one of the most simple solutions out there are about synthetic monitoring, for instance. So I'm going to query my website, to know if it's up and down, and this is really like the 101 of monitoring. So now, logging falls into another category, because you can do monitoring with logging. Because you can just look at. And first of all, I'm going to probably define what is a log. A log is just a dated event. It's something that happened in the past that is dated. Like lots of the applications that are running on the cloud, that companies are now running all over the places, are logging very different format and in large quantity. Why we do that is because it represents the history of the company operations. It's what your software is doing when you interact with your users. So logging is useful for monitoring. It's also useful for troubleshooting, so this is actually the main and historical usage is when I connect to the server and I'm going to look at the logging file, and I'm going to tail grep or grep and figure out what was going on, because the system was failing. And when I say was failing, it's because the log told me that something was failing at the first place. And then if I want to dig more, I'm going to look in the logs. Logs are also very useful for audit and compliancy, to know if I'm compliant. So and also to know if I did something I was supposed to do in the past. So observability is the category Datadog is clearly falling into with what we call time series or metrics first. So if you usually, like when you want to do monitoring, the most basic thing you want to collect is CPUs and memory, and you want to figure out if the metric is here. So a health check as well. But very fast you realize that you can generate like a lot of more metrics that are related to your business. So I'm going to use operational metrics, so that are going to be used by developers or ops people in a way that more and more, and even like sometimes you don't even realize that is happening, that more and more you're going to actually observe your business and how your applications are behaving. And observability, at least like the definition we have in Datadog, is based on three main pillars. So I think like for good observability, you need three tools: metrics or time series, logging, log management, so aggregating, collecting logs from a lot of different places and powered by a search engine so you can quickly troubleshoot, etc. And APM, application performance monitoring. So it's about measuring the performance of your source code and also of your cross-process discussions.
It's a complicated space. It's very good that Datadog is trying to bring all these things together in one place, like you mentioned, between logging, between application performance monitoring, bring them all into one common place that customers can work with. One of the big challenges of logging, or really any of these things where we want to have high visibility, is on one hand, people say, well, you should log everything, output everything from the application that you can, log everything. And then on the flip side, there's the challenges of how fast can some system ingest all those logs, and then what's the cost to store all those logs. So what are some of the things that are happening in the industry, or some of the things maybe that you're working on, to make it so that trade-off doesn't have to be so severe of, I want greater visibility, but I can't afford to keep up with or keep track of the stuff that'll help me with visibility?
Yeah. It's a very good question. And it's a very big question in the industry. I mean, I'm seeing trade-offs, as you can imagine, every day of that kind. So, and I'm going to get back to Logmatic to describe the problem here, because we were a much smaller log management company. We were not, even if and I'm going to do a small digression here, every company that is working in some of the three branches here, like observability here, APM, metrics, or log management, are aiming to have to build another product and to provide a more comprehensive view. But so even at Logmatic, we wanted to do metrics and we wanted to do APM. So to answer that question, so let's focus on log management. Log management today, if you look at all the log management, I shouldn't say all, because you can always find one solution out there that you don't know that is doing things a little bit differently. But most of, I should say, the industry in general is working that way. So basically, and that started in the early 2000s, and I'm not going to mention one of the biggest company in that space. They say, actually, you're having more and more systems out there. You're having more and more services. You're having more and more servers. So, and we are seeing developers just connecting SSH, doing SSH into terminals and trying to figure out what is going on. What about if we can become the Google of logs? And that little pitch here worked very well. And so a search engine on logs. This is really what is log management today. And of course, there is much more at the top of that, but that's the 101 of log management. So I collect logs and I index them. And that's funny, because we all think that all the big social networks and everything are indexing lots of content, but log management companies are actually indexing tons of content. It's actually, we have a similar size than something like Twitter or even Google in some area, in terms of indexing web pages. The problem of indexing logs is that this is costly. It's you want to index log because you want to have a search engine that is going, and so you're going to be able to slice and dice. And then another feature you're going to provide is analytics at the top of this search engine. So you're going to be able to graph your logs and then slice and dice over your graphs, so you can quickly troubleshoot in a much more efficient way than before. But the problem is that with the cloud, with the explosion of the microservices, containers, Lambda functions, PaaS services, the amount of log is becoming too high. And there is a big question right now about should I index everything? Should I or should I make trade-offs? And what I'm seeing now is, and I was already seeing that at Logmatic, obviously, is that we were charging for an amount of gigabytes per day, and people were filtering out their logs at the server level or at the application level. And the problem with that is when you have an incident, for instance, then you're going to be blind. So, the world's like the log management solutions right now and the pricing scheme are not work to serve the customers, and they are working against the actual needs of our users.
So Renaud, that's super fascinating and actually plays into the next question I was going to ask you. To kind of bring those all together, you said the slicing and dicing, which I really like. This idea of you have to collect a lot, but then you also have to find that needle in the haystack all at the same time. And it all comes down to a larger conversation of a financial trade-off of the costs of doing all of this versus potential costs associated with a failure. And then if you're pre-filtering before you're ingesting, if you will, then there's, certain things that have to happen with all of that as well. And so there's an issue there. So I guess maybe I'm where I'm getting with all of that is, okay, what is your suggestions for a framework based off of this? And how do these conversations play out in real life? And kind of what is the analysis that needs to be done?
When I joined Datadog, the founders of Datadog already identified the problem. Log management customers were frustrated about the subscription fees and the way the way log management solutions were pricing, because they had to do trade-offs, and at some moment they were blind because they didn't have the logs, because they didn't send these logs which were high volume and considered at the time at least not very valuable. So, and this is usually when I like to describe the problem here. So if you look at logs, you have three characteristics that are inherent to logs. So high volume, so you have tons of them. It's not like we are lacking of logs, we have too much of them right now. Another problem is the variation. If a developer deploy a new piece of code and then there is a new logging line, that is into a big loop, right? You're going to have an enormous amount of logs. The most common example that we are seeing, but only like people are sleeping during the night. So usually what we are seeing from our companies we are working with here is that when people sleep, that they generate obviously 10 times less logs than when at noon, for instance. And I'm not even mentioning like the bigger variations that you might have, which are related to Black Friday or Christmas, or like things that are related to your business, or an ad that you just posted that had a big impact on your traffic. So high variation. And there is something that we don't really mention all the time, but is actually the most important one for me, is the change of value, And when I say change of value, it's there is a perceived value depending on the audience. If you're a developer working on that specific service, these logs are going to be very important to you. But if you're working at as an ops or an administrator, going to look at them. And if you're working on security, same thing. Like the developers are not going to look at some logs, but you're going to be very interested at these logs. The other problem is different moments. You have an incident. Suddenly, like the administrator that was not looking at some logs, he wants to get access to it. So the change of value is something that you cannot really forecast. You don't really know. And especially if you are the one paying for the solution. So you don't want to impose trade-offs to your teams, because they are the ones that knows what are the value of your logs. So, and when I ask the question to companies, hey, did you make trade-offs, or are you making trade-offs, and ask team leads or engineers to remove some logs because the log management solution is becoming too expensive? The answer is 100% yes. It's very surprising. So when I say, did you ask your teams about that? And they say yes. And then the second question I ask is, did you have an incident in the past? And then they came back to you, and then they complained that they didn't have access to the logs. And most of the time the answer is yes as well. So when you are the one who asked to limit the amount of logs, you feel very bad. So this is how we set the problem here. And as Datadog came into the log management industry a little bit more than 1 year ago, we decided to tackle the problem. We were the challenger, so we wanted to bring some kind of disruption into the market and do something that is very good for the user, because that problem was mentioned everywhere. So we came up with that idea. that is pretty simple. We say that what is expensive is indexing logs. And you index logs for search, for troubleshooting, for slice and dicing, for analytics. But this is not where you're going to store logs. Like if you want to store your logs to just keep the history of what happened in the past, you're going to use S3, right? So ingesting logs, S3 or like any other cold storage. So ingesting logs, processing logs, providing a live tail, and archiving logs is something that we can deliver on a much more cost-efficient manner. And we can decouple the indexing and let the user decide what is worth indexing depending on the situation. So we have two price tags: a very low one that is about sending logs, ingesting logs, processing logs, and archiving them. And another one that is indexing that is similar to what the industry is proposing, because indexing is expensive. And that really addressed the issue here, because now you don't have to do trade-offs at the server level. You can do trade-offs into the user interface, or even better, with APIs automatically. So, which means that you do not impose trade-offs that are much more difficult to solve. You let the user decide the logs they need at the moment they need, depending on the value.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's good to see that that level of granularity is kind of being extended out to users, and you give them some ability to kind of control the levers of what should we keep, or what should we what can help influence us, and it's nice that you don't always have to make those decisions up front. Let me ask you one question, because we've talked about a lot of different things in terms of architectural differences and where things are changing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as more information gets kept about applications, whether that's logs or for monitoring or for other things, it gets overwhelming for people. What do you see as you kind of put on you look into your crystal ball and you look out in the future? How much of a role does artificial intelligence or some sort of machine augmentation make for making people able to keep up with all this stuff?
So before talking about AI, I'm going to do maybe a small digression about what seems to be what is for us the most important thing to solve at the moment. So, and there are two reasons for that. So logging without limits, but also because of one of the concepts that I mentioned before, which is the 3 pillars of observability, like being able to have the 3 solutions that you need to observe your systems and your business. And so the first thing that we are trying to do right and much better than what the competition is doing right now is how, with good naming conventions, opinionated decisions, but not too much, because when you're too opinionated, you tend to prevent people to do things. So, I'm going to mention the Datadog motto, but the Datadog motto is simple but not simplistic. So, which means that all your users, it's extremely simple to navigate through the 3 pillars, right? To do a troubleshooting session, moving from APM to metrics to log management. And even inside each solution, it's easy to move into the data. But if you want to go off-road, you can. So this is one of the big challenges we are trying to solve right now. And we've been successful, but we still have some work to do it, is how, with good naming convention, the right dose of opinion on doing things, we're going to provide an experience where this expression about the platform, right? That the sum of the solutions that you have is actually superior to the value of each individual solution. So this is really what we are trying to solve here. So that's one thing we are actively working on. One agent that collects everything, collect the same tags, same formats, designing a user interface and a set of APIs that makes the journey and makes the journey of the users and developers extremely seamless. So we can boost the general efficiency into companies. So that's one of the big thing we are working on right now, and we are going to constantly work on this.
Yeah, very, very cool. It was as you were going through that, it was very obvious the level of passion and excitement you have around this. So very cool to hear about kind of all the different things that you're working on. Aaron, any last thoughts about kind of this space? It's obviously critical to make applications work.
Yeah, and I would say this too, for those that are listening to this may be one of those. Go back and listen to it again as well, because there's some very subtle and distinct differences in what we talked about this. And, as folks are starting to think about kind of these next generation architectures or these cloud first architectures, and especially the piece around, this decoupling and the microservices, gosh, that is, was such a key point to pull out of this too. The complexity, as the complexity of the coupling of the applications increases, so does the observability of all of this as well.
Exactly.
So that's a fantastic point, and thank you for that. So Renaud, with that, how can everyone find more about you, about the company, and kind of if they're interested, dig in a little further?
So I think Datadog is a known name in the industry right now. So Datadog HQ.com is the place to go, right? We have lots of blog posts, lots of content because we are sharing our observation. Our customers are sharing their own way of doing things. So that's really the best place to start, I think.
Well, listen, with that, Aaron.
And I will probably add one more thing. Datadog is actually hosting, because this is not a Datadog conference. So this is a conference about observability and scaling system in general. So it's called Dash. This is so we are going to have, of course, we're going to have a lot of Datadog customers, but we are the aim of that conference is really to talk about scaling your system on the cloud and how to observe well and how to securize them, and that's mid-July. That's called the Dash conference in New York.
Very cool. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Aaron, it's been good discussion. Renaud, thank you so much for all the insight. Folks, as always, thank you for listening to the show. Thanks for telling a friend. Thanks for rating on iTunes. We really appreciate it. It's helping to grow the show. And with that, we're going to wrap it up, and we will talk to you all next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.